Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to the session. I'm Shweta Sharma, and today we have another session, session 8 for reading comprehension and grammar for CMAT 2025. I hope everyone's keeping well. I hope we had a healthy week so far, just a day of the week been passed. And I also hope we tried some few questions I shared with you yesterday on one of the RCs we were solving on social science, right? So I'll quickly take you through the passage again since you might not recall the passage altogether, right? But before we start, I would like to know in case you have any doubts or any questions you want me to take up so that we are already, on the same page before we go ahead. So any questions, any doubts regarding the prep or regarding the vocabulary we discussed yesterday, please put them here in the chat box and we'll start in another 30 seconds then with the passage. Guys, do we have any questions about the CMAT pattern or the types of questions you have generally come across? Anything you want me to take up first? If not, we'll quickly move to this passage and go through it, right? And then we'll come back to the questions we were discussing yesterday. So in this one, we are actually referring to a debate, right? It says, is the literary critic like the poet responding creatively, intuitively, subjectively to the written word as a poet responds to human experience? Or is the critic more like a scientist following a series of demonstrable, verifiable steps using an objective method of analysis? So, whether it's a critic who's working like a poet or it's a critic who is more like a scientist, going through a logical step by step approach, going through a demonstration of verifiable steps. This is what the debate is about. What kind of a critic do we have? And that too, a literary critic we are referring to, right? And then one is the debate between two sorts of critics. Two sorts of critics we are referring to. One is the one that goes like a poet, right? More focused on creativity. And the other one we are referring to is more on the scientific approach. Okay? So more like verifications. And then this is one sort of debate. The other one is where it says that this debate is being undertaken by a woman or a man, right? For a woman who is practitioner of feminist literary criticism, subjectivity versus objectivity. So for a woman, it says it's basically subjectivity versus objectivity. The question is not only academic but political as well, and the definition will quote special risks whichever side of the issue it favors. If she defines feminist criticism as objective and scientific, a valid, verifiable intellectual method that anyone, whether man or woman, can perform, the definition not only precludes the critic as artist approach, but may also impede accomplishment of utilitarian political objectives of those who seek to change the academic establishment and its thinking, especially about sex roles. So, if she wants to step into that role from a critic's viewpoint, that too as an artist means as a poet or a scientist, right? The idea is whether she's going towards the subjectivity or the objectivity, the idea is that she would always be impeded with some kind of criticism, or she would not be able to, get into that role of a critic completely. She being a woman, right? But may also impede accomplishment of the utilitarian political objectives of those who seek to change the academic establishment. Academic establishment, as we discussed yesterday. Okay, Flash, we'll just come back to your question. So, when we're talking about academic establishment, it's basically the fundamentals which have been already set, the prejudice which people already hold, right? उस चीज को अगर हम चैलेंज करने की कोशिश करेंगे, वो भी कोई भी एक विमेन जो क्रिटिसाइज कर रही है, तो वो एक लिमिटेड दायरे में रहकर ऐसा कर सकते हैं. She can only do it within a limited bandwidth, right? She can't go beyond a certain bandwidth because she herself will be challenged by her own academic establishment, her own, prejudices. She will be taken aback by. So, if she defines feminist criticism as creative and intuitive, privileged as art, and then work becomes vulnerable to the prejudices of stereotypic ideas about the ways in which women think and will be dismissed by an intuitive approach in the criticism. Sorry, will be dismissed by the academic stereotypes it's referring to, right? Will be challenged by the academic establishment, because these prejudices women who use an intuitive approach in their criticism may find themselves charged with inability to be analytical, to be objective, or to think critically, right? So what we're talking about is debate between critics who are more on the art side, right? Art as in like poetic side, right? And the other one is when we are talking about the scientific side. और उसमें भी अगर वो विमेन है, ठीक है, तो उसके लिए क्या बड़ा चैलेंज है कि शी कैन नॉट स्टेप आउट ऑफ हर ओन जेंडर, राइट? इफ शी वांट्स टू टेक that that liberty of breaking all the stereotypes, she cannot do that. She will always be stopped, she'll always be obstructed by the prejudices, she'll always be challenged by the academic establishment. Uske beyond वो कुछ भी criticize नहीं कर सकती अगर चाहे भी तो, right? On the other side, it says the men may be free to claim the role of critics as artists. Women run different professional risks when they choose intuition and private experience as critical method and defense, right? The same thing when it comes to men, they have every chance to criticize completely. They are not obstructed or challenged by any kind of academic establishment. Okay, and then it says these questions are political in the sense. Political matlab, if we talk about political angle, a man trying to take a leadership role or it's a women undertaking a leadership role, the things will be very different. The scenario altogether is going to be very different. These questions are political in the sense that the debate over them will inevitably be less an exploration of abstract matters in a spirit of disinterested inquiry than an academic power struggle in which the careers and professional fortunes of many women scholars only now entering the academic profession substantial numbers will it be at stake, and then with them the chances of a distinctive contribution to humanistic understanding, a contribution that might be an important influence against sexism in our society. So as long as academic establishment continues to regard objective analysis as masculine and an intuitive approach as feminine, the theoretician must steer a delicate professional philosophical course between the two. So if it is being dominated, if the criticism itself is being dominated by the feminine and masculine genders, and somebody who's a female trying to criticize is not given that liberty. On the other side, a man who's trying to criticize altogether is allowed, or he doesn't face that sort of challenge. Then a person who's recording all the scenario has to be very smart in capturing the details and the delicate philosophical course between the two, कि कहाँ तक क्या journey है, कहाँ तक female को allowed है, कहाँ तक male को किस bandwidth तक allowed है. So if she wishes to construct a theory of feminist criticism, she would be well advised to place it within the framework of a general theory of critical process that is neither purely objective nor purely intuitive. So a woman has to be very, very sharp in understanding that she can neither be very objective in her ways of criticism nor purely can she be questionary. She cannot be intuitive on that. Her theory is then more likely to be compared and contrasted with other theories of criticism. If she wants to be a strongly realized and a promoted critic, she has to make sure that she doesn't criticize beyond the level that the society allows her, right? So in all, what we're trying to say is, altogether there's just one storyline which says that women is not allowed to criticize, right? In simple terms पे यही रेफर करना चाह रहे हैं कि अगर हम creatively, intuitively, subjectively criticism की बात करें, so women critics are not allowed to criticize as much as a male practitioner would be allowed, right? So that is what the entire passage talks about. That's what the entire debate is about. And if somebody is recording this theory, he or she has to be very prudent, very careful in understanding where he or she has to draw the lines and understand the contrast, how the theories are being set up. And only then, in that case, if a woman is that specific in criticizing, her theory would be found comparative or comparable to the other theories on criticism present at that particular time. Okay, so this was the passage we were discussing yesterday. I know it's a bit tough on the social science part, but this is what social science has to offer. Let's quickly move to some questions. Very first question, and a very interesting question, guys. Best summarizes the content of the passage. So I do not think it's a very tough question if you have understood the passage with me. Very good evening, Rishabh. How are you? Guys, can we quickly try to answer the question? What are we trying to summarize in the passage? How theories of literary criticism can't best be used. We are not saying how the theories can be used. We're talking about the theories, criticism, And in what cases can that criticism be limited, right? Problems confronting women who are feminist literary critics, that's a challenge which is being posed here, that if it is a woman who is a literary critic here, then she will not be given that much of liberty. So that's the problem we are referring to, so we can hold on to this option. Historical overview of feminist literary criticism. It's not a historical overview of feminist literary criticism, it is just referring to the women's side and the challenge she's facing. New theory of literary criticism, no theory is being mentioned. We're rather referring to how that theory has to be recorded. Literary criticism, art or science? Not really. That's just one sentence. That's a debate about. So answer is B, Bombay. I hope everybody got the answer right. Karthik, right. That's correct. Okay. We'll hop on to the next one now if this seems fine to all of us. Please have a look at this one. Interesting question. Once you're done with this, we will be moving ahead to the next question. We have good number of questions for this particular passage, guys. Please have a look at it. I hope we're done. Karthik, can we have your answer? So answer has to be A alpha again for this. How do we figure out the answer? It says it can be inferred that the author believes which of the following about women who are literary critics. ठीक है? Literary critics के लिए author का क्या statement है? They can make a unique contribution to society. That is what he's trying to say कि उनको आजादी नहीं दी जा रही. They're not allowed to criticize, but if they are given that freedom to criticize as per their understanding and as per their own judgmental preconceived notions and rather shattering those stereotypes, then they can definitely add something to the society, so they can have a unique contribution to the society, something we can consider. They must develop a new theory of critical process. He is not instigating them to develop a new theory of critical process. He knows that they can do only if they're not allowed to, they're not forced to be challenged every time. If they are not obstructed, they can probably get very different contribution in terms of society, in terms of the theories they're contributing to, in terms of criticism, right? So one is the only option we could see. That's the correct answer, A alpha. Next one says the author specifically mentions all of the following as difficulties that particularly affect women who are theoreticians of feminist literary criticism except. Okay, so ये except वाले questions काफी interesting होते हैं, because यहाँ पे whatever is true as per the passage is not your answer. ठीक है, so I'll give you 30-40 seconds, quickly go through the options, try to hit on the right answer in the chat box. Once you're done, then we can move back and see. Also, if you want to refer the passage, guys, please let me know. I'll take you back to that particular passage. All right, Karthik, how did you eliminate? Author specifically mentions all of the following as difficulties that particularly affect women. ये सारे challenges आते हैं. जो भी challenge नहीं है, that is the problem. I mean, that is what you have to answer basically. Right? That particularly affect women are the challenges who are theoreticians of feminist literary criticism except. So that is what you have to answer. Tendency of a predominantly male academic establishment to form preconceptions about women. So टेंडेंसी ऑफ प्रिडोमिनेटली मेल एकेडमिक एस्टैब्लिशमेंट, दैट इज व्हाट इट सेज कि यही चैलेंज है. दिस इज द चैलेंज विच इज बीइंग रेफर्ड टू. है ना? तो ये चैलेंज है, तो ये आंसर नहीं होगा. लिमिटेशंस दैट आर इम्पोज्ड व्हेन क्रिटिसिज्म इज डिफाइंड एज ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड साइंटिफिक. वही लिमिटेशंस की हम बात कर रहे हैं. इट इज अ चैलेंज. यस. Therefore, is it my answer? No. Likelihood that the work of a women theoretician who claims the privilege of art will be viewed with prejudice by some academics. है ना? वो यही तो बोल रहा है कि उसको हमेशा एक क्रिटिसिज्म के साथ देखा जाएगा. तो दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट अलाउड. D says inescapability of power struggles between women in the academic profession and the academic establishment. So, inescapability matlab women cannot escape academic profession and academic establishment. But this is true. That's a challenge. So we cannot say it's close either. यही तो प्रॉब्लम है कि वो प्रोफेशन में उसको क्रिटिसाइज करना है बिकॉज शी इज अ क्रिटिक एंड ऑन द अदर साइड शी इज ऑल्सो लाइक काइंड ऑफ इन अ स्वोलन स्मैश ऑफ स्वॉश ऑफ एकेडमिक एस्टैब्लिशमेंट. तो उसको प्री कंसीव नोशंस के ऊपर भी नहीं जाना है. वो उनको भी चैलेंज नहीं कर सकती. तो ये तो चैलेंज हुआ. चैलेंज हुआ तो आंसर नहीं होगा. E says tendency of members of the academic establishment to treat all forms of feminist literary theory with hostility. So there is nothing which talks about कि members of academic establishment they treat all forms of feminist literary theory with hostility as an enmity. ऐसा नहीं है कि males या members उसको एक enmity के साथ treat करते हैं. This is not mentioned. So this is not a challenge for a female. E is the right answer and D is not close, Karthik, just to clarify here. ठीक है. Next question. Please have a look at this one. Which of the following reasons do you find is the author in the debate mentioning in the passage has special significance of the women whose theoretic tradition of feminist literary criticism for which of the following reasons? Okay, so first you try it out, take another 30-40 seconds, then we'll discuss it. Are we good to discuss? Great. Let's have a look at the question then, Karthik. I think you have had a look at the question already. D is the right option. I hope you guys tried it too, the rest of you. According to the author, the debate mentioned in the passage has special significance for the women who is a theoretician of feminist literary criticism, which of the following reasons, right? So, in the last paragraph, where he refers to drawing a very, prudent line, as long as the academic establishment continues to regard objective analysis as masculine and intuitive approach as feminine, the theoretician must steer a delicate philosophical course between the two. If she wishes to construct a theory of feminist criticism, she would be well advised to place it within the framework of a general theory of critical process, neither too objective nor too intuitive. Right? If she wants a theory to be considered, under the accepted theory of criticism at that time, then she should be neither too objective nor too intuitive. That's what the author wants a particular female critic to be. Right? So there are large number of capable women working with the academic establishment. The debate mentioned in the passage had special significance for why लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म के लिए क्यों वो इतनी इंपॉर्टेंस दे रहा है उसको क्योंकि बहुत सारी नंबर ऑफ केपेबल women are there. It's not like being a large number of women being there, but women are very much indifferent to intuitive and the critical approach, the intuitive and the objective approach. Few powerful feminist critics who've been recognized by the academic establishment. ऐसा भी नहीं है कि वो ये बोल रहा है कि less number of women are understood or they are considered as the right critics. Like other critics, most women who are literary critics define criticism as either scientific or artistic. No, we are not defining those women who are being defined as scientific or artistic. We are categorizing both scientific as well as artistic, but if they are crossing that limit, crossing that, what is acceptable as academic establishment, that is when their theory is not considered to be coming from a good critic. Fourth says women who are literary critics face professional risks different from those faced by men who are literary critics. So that is what the passage talks about here too in the last few lines. Um, if you look at this part, because of these prejudices, women who use an intuitive approach in their criticism may find themselves charged with inability to be analytical, to be objective, or to think critically. Whereas men may be free to claim the role of critic as artist, women run different professional risks when they choose intuition and private experience as critical method and defense. Right? So men, they are free to claim the role of critic as an artist, whereas women do not find that kind of parity out there. Right? So women are literary critics face professional risks different from those faced by men. So D is the correct answer. Women who are literary critics are more likely to be participating in the debate than are men. Same number of men and women are, even if same number of men and women are participating, still what is faced by a man is very nominal, very rather less as compared to what a women faces. Right? She being a critic, she cannot criticize. She'll be given a lot of backlash. Right? So D is the correct answer. Please have a look at this one. This is slightly critical reasoning question because it says author in support of the following suggestion, that is stereotypic thinking about members of the academic establishment. Please have a look at this, then we discuss it. इसके बाद we'll practice one passage from humanities. I hope it would be interesting for you again. Let's quickly try this last question. All right, let's quickly have a look at the question, Karthik. Okay. Which of the following is presented by the author in support of the suggestion that there is a stereotypical thinking about members of the academic establishment? Okay. So why is it a CR question? Critical reasoning का question क्यों है ये? Because it's asking you to support something. Support what? Suggestion that stereotypic thinking among members of the academic establishment, right? There is a stereotypic thinking among the members of academic establishment. How can we support this? A says a distinctively feminist contribution to humanistic understanding could work against the influence of sexism among members of the academic establishment. अगर कोई distinctive feminist contribution हो भी जाए, it would not impact because eventually it's the males who are not facing that challenge. It's the females who are facing. तो उनको तब भी लगेगा वो challenge. Women who define criticism as artistic may be seen by the academic establishment as being incapable of critical thinking. Can we consider it? Yes, because what they're trying to say is कि शायद वो इतने अच्छा criticism कर ही नहीं सकती हैं because they're not allowed to because they're challenging the academic establishment, right? So this seems to be like a round robin fashion statement, right? But this is what is actually trying to support the statement that stereotypic thinking about members of the academic establishment is there because women are not able to define criticism properly as an artist or even from the scientific approach. They're seen as an obstruction to academic establishment. They do not have that capability of criticizing well. Debate over the role of literary critic is often seen as a political one. No. Women scholars are only now entering academic in substantial numbers. They were already entering it maybe, or they were not allowed to enter. Even they're not allowed now, they were not allowed back then. Women who is a critic is forced to construct a theory of literary criticism. She is not allowed to, right? So when you eliminate, you get B rather more strongly as the correct answer choice. Okay. So B is the reason why we would say that it's supporting the suggestion that there is a stereotypic thinking among members of the academic establishment. Women define criticism as artistic. They are seen as an academic hurdle. They're not capable enough to criticize. They're not the right critics. That's what they consider. Okay. Okay, now we'll move to another passage. Would you like to try this? This is really interesting. 3 paragraphs to it, and then some questions. This is, by the way, humanities, right? Not coming from social science, but very much relatable. Just give it a shot, then we'll discuss it together. Let me know once you're done reading this paragraph. I'll take you to the next slide. Please let me know if you're done with this paragraph. I'll switch to the next one for you. Okay, check this one. Just hover over the passage for 30 seconds, move ahead to the next one. We cannot read every sentence of the paragraph if it is mentioned here. If you're given the entire passage to read, you don't have to read actually the entire passage. You just have to read some bit of it and move to the next part. Okay, we always skip and scan when we move ahead. We don't have to sleep over the passage. Please let me know if you're done. Also, when you're reading it, please try to understand the tone. What sort of tone is the paragraph holding? Okay, we had a session on tone a couple of sessions back. You can go through that session. It will give you good 20 to 25 types of tones which you can encounter in exam. Right? So on the basis of that, you can define what is the tonality of the paragraph. Okay, I'm taking you to the last paragraph. Have a look at it. Try capturing some small, summary notes for the entire passage. Okay, I'm assuming everyone's done. What about the rest of us, guys? Are we still reading it? Let me know if we can move ahead. Let's quickly discuss the passage and wrap up with the questions. Okay, so what is it about? It's a humanities passage, as I stated. So you'll expect more of history from, you know, how the American, Anglo-American history, which is something you can expect कि अफ्रीका से लोग अमेरिका कैसे ट्रांसफर हुए थे, उनको लेबर की तरह ट्रीट किया जाता था, विमेन की क्या कंडीशन थी, राइट? विमेन वर ट्रीटेड एज rodents at times. They were made pregnant and just left over to, at times, to just die, just like another thing. And similarly, they might talk about industrialization. They might talk about how coal changed the entire history of industry altogether and pre-industrialization for Europe. Right? These are the passages you can expect under humanities. So in the early 1950s, historians who studied pre-industrial Europe, which we may define here as Europe in the period from roughly 1300 to 1800, began for the first time in large numbers to investigate more of the pre-industrial European population than the 2 or 3% who comprised the political and social elite. That is the kings, the generals, the judges, nobles, bishops, and local magnates who had hitherto. Hitherto means till now, so far, usually filled history books. Like who were the always the celebrated personalities when it comes to capturing those celebrities in history. So in the early 50s, 1950s, historians who studied प्री इंडस्ट्रियल यूरोप, जिन्होंने प्री इंडस्ट्रियल यूरोप को स्टडी किया, प्री इंडस्ट्रियल यूरोप का मतलब 1300 से 1800 तक का ड्यूरेशन जो था, those 500 years began for, not the 500 years, sorry, 1300 to 1500, 1800, yeah, right. So began for the first time in large numbers to investigate more of the pre-industrial European population than the 2 or 3% who comprise the political and social elite. They were investigating more on the pre-industrial European population, the general population, than 2 or 3% who comprise than studying the elite class. मतलब उन्होंने ज्यादा उन लोगों को कैप्चर नहीं किया जिनको अदरवाइज हिस्ट्री में ज्यादा कैप्चर किया जाता था, ये वो कहना चाह रहा है. So one difficulty, however, was that few of the remaining 97% recorded their thoughts or had them chronicled by contemporaries. Right. So one difficulty was that few of the remaining 97%, जो 97% of the population थी, ठीक है, उनको किसने रिकॉर्ड किया? Recorded their thoughts or had their chronicled by contemporaries. Contemporary मतलब same time. Faced with this situation, many historians base their investigations on the only records that seem to exist. तो कुछ ऐसे जनरल कल्चरल इश्यूज पे उन्होंने अपनी हिस्ट्री रिकॉर्ड कर दी, जैसे बर्थ, मैरिज, डेथ रिकॉर्ड्स. As a result, much of the early work on non-elite, is it like non-elite? Okay. So, as a result, much of the early work on non-elite class, मतलब जिसको ज्यादा नहीं जाना जाता, जो celeb वाले कैटेगरी में नहीं रहा करती थी, not the premium ones, was aridly statistical in nature, majorly statistical. Reducing the vast majority of the population to a set of numbers was hardly more enlightening than ignoring them altogether. So historians still did not know what these people thought or felt, right? They did not still understand what was the understanding for these people. These people as in like 97% of the people. One way out of this dilemma was to turn to the records of legal codes. Right? One thing was that they could actually capture some information from the legal codes. For here, the voices of non-elite can most often be heard. यहाँ पे actually पता चलता था कि उनकी life में क्या चल रहा है. As witnesses, as plaintiffs, defendants, these documents have acted as a point of entry into the mental world of the poor. Right? So he's actually bifurcating society into high class and the non-elite ones. Non-elite are the poor people he's referring to. Historians such as Leroy, Lowry have used the documentaries to extract case histories which have illuminated the attitudes of different social groups. These attitudes include, but not are confined to, attitudes towards crime and the law, and have revealed how the authorities administered justice, how they actually captured justice on the way. It has been societies that have had a developed police system and practiced Roman law. ठीक है, तो कोर्ट सिस्टम उस टाइम पे भी था, राइट? उस टाइम पे भी प्रॉब्लम्स होती थी, और उन प्रॉब्लम्स को सॉल्व करने के लिए देवर पुलिस एज वेल, राइट? सो सम हिस्टोरियंस दे हैव कैप्चर्ड द 2 to 3% of the class, that is what we are calling as elite class, जिसमें किंग्स हो गए, generals, judges, nobles, bishops. That's what we get to know कि पहले a country was being ruled by a president or a king A, then it was overtaken by king B. That's how the entire lineage has been shared. But do we get to know about the common man's life? Not much, right? So that is what the paragraph is talking about कि जो historians ने प्री इंडस्ट्रियल एरा पढ़ा यूरोप का, उन्होंने कुछ कुछ ऐसा 97% को भी कैप्चर किया, और उसमें जो कैप्चर किया उसमें उन्होंने मेजरली वो केसेस कैप्चर करे जो तब सामने आए जब वो लीगल कोर्ट्स जाते थे, where the voices of the non-elite actually could be heard, right? Historians such as Leroy have used the documents to extract case histories which have illuminated the attitudes of different social groups and have revealed how the authorities administered justice. It has been societies that have had a developed police system and have practiced Roman law with its written depositions, whose court records have yielded the most data to historians. So in Anglo-Saxon countries, hardly any of these benefits obtained. Anglo is English we are referring to, right? So those countries, they hardly had any benefits out of it, but was still been possible to glean information from the study of legal documents. ठीक है, वैसे लोगों के बारे में नहीं पता चलता था in general through what they were going through or what their challenges were, but when we read those legal documents, we get to know how their lives were. Extraction of case histories is not, however, the only use to which court records may be put. Historians who study pre-industrial Europe may have used the records to establish a series of categories of crime and to quantify indictments that were issued over a given number of years, right? So some kind of anger issues that were shown, or some kind of crimes that were committed during a period of time. And of course, if they were committed, most of the times they must have been committed by the lower class of the society. So that's how the lower class of the society's life was also captured in these history excerpts. So extraction of case histories is not, however, the only use to which court records may be put. Historians who study pre-industrial Europe may have used the records to establish a series of categories of crime and to quantify indictments that were issued over a given number of years. So this use of the records does yield some information about the non-elite, but this information gives us little insight into the mental lives of the non-elite. Right? We do not get to know about their mental lives. Little information, as in like almost no information about the non-elite's mental lives, how they were facing the mental challenges, how they were facing the challenges mentally, how the situation was for them. Of course, जो physical उनकी life state और lifestyle दिखता था वो तो एक चीज थी, but financially how are they going through life, okay, what challenges did they have relationship wise, the kids wise, what sort of challenges, how was the education system, how was the health system at that time, right? So all of these contribute to mental health. We also know that the number of indictments in pre-industrial Europe bears little relation to the number of actual criminal acts, okay? So number of indictments in the pre-industrial Europe bears little relation to the number of actual criminal acts. कितने acts हुए और कितने actions, criminal acts कितने record हुए, there might also be a huge difference. And we strongly suspect that the relationship has varied widely over time. So in addition, aggregate population estimates are very shaky, right? If you look at the aggregate population as in total population, कितना था, demographics कैसे थे, how many were the young kids, how many were the poor, old people. So all of that is also not much added to the documentaries, right? Which makes it difficult for historians to compare rates of crime per thousand in one decade of the pre-industrial period with rates in another decade. So given these inadequacies, it is clear why the case history use of court records is to be preferred. So eventually, what are we trying to say? We're trying to state that why the case history use of court records is preferred over the other history recorded by the historians. Right? That is what we are trying to prove. के उसके जो records हैं वो properly captured नहीं है, सारे cases उसमें capture नहीं होते थे. So better we go for preferring the use of court records. Right? So I hope this passage was well understood. I know it was a little monotonous, not very interesting passage again. Humanities, social science, thoda hota hi aisa hai. But we cannot skip the fact that, eventually we have to read it. So let's quickly understand the general idea, the structure and tone. What is the role of each paragraph? I'll be waiting for the answers from you guys before we move to the questions. I'm giving you 30 to 40 seconds, so maybe 1 minute. Quickly drop down your answers. The general idea, G, S, T, that is what I'm expecting, guys. General idea as in the summary. This will also help you to figure out the basic question which might be asked ahead. Structure is basically the function of each paragraph and tone of the passage. Right, I'm not asking you the title for now. Just help me with the 3 parameters and we're good to move ahead to the questions. Okay, giving you 30 seconds to 1 minute. Please drop in your answers in the chat box. I want everyone to please answer in the chat box so that we can have an understanding of being in the same page. Okay. Karthik and the rest of us, can I have your answers, please? What's the general idea? It's about the historians of the pre-industrial European era, capturing the record from 1300 to 1800. wherein they are capturing more about the lives of the 97% of the population, which comprises of old poor people, right? And because these historians have captured more data on the correct records, of how many acts were basically the criminal acts, how was the lifestyle, how were the people altogether. So we are preferring to consider the data captured in the case history use of court records over the other historians' work, right? Mental life of non-elites was evaluated based on court records. We can say that mental life is one aspect of it, I would say. We are trying to capture it, of course, but that's just one aspect, isn't it? One way of this dilemma was to turn to the records of legal courts, for here the voices of the non-elite can most often be heard as witnesses, plaintiffs, and defendants. These documents have acted as a point of entry into the mental health of the poor, right? But is it just inclusive of mental health? It does include mental health. That's just one side, right? We are also referring to the other parts of the history. So, yes, it's partially correct what you said. Tone is analytical. How is it analytical? How do we consider something to be analytical? Are we capturing the pros and cons? Is it just descriptive? एनालिटिकल का मतलब होता है कि आपने एक पॉइंट को लेके एनालाइज किया, एक साइनसॉइडल मिल गया आपको, some positives, some negatives, you're comparing. This is more of a description. Okay, can we have a look at the questions now? It's the first question, guys. Yeah, please have a look at the first question. फैक्चुअल कह सकते हैं, फैक्ट्स भी है बट फैक्ट्स बहुत ज्यादा भी नहीं है ऋषभ. वी आर डिराइविंग सम ओपिनियन आउट ऑफ इट ना, तो डिस्क्रिप्टिव इज अ बेटर ऑप्शन, आई वुड से. ठीक है, can we look at the question, guys? The author suggests that before the early 1950s, most historians would who studied pre-industrial Europe did which of the following? Just have a look at it. Let me know once you're done. Giving you 30 seconds to quickly have a look at it. Karthik, what makes you think that this is the particular answer, like this particular option is the correct answer? Yes, how do we figure out this is the right answer? First para itself. Okay. Question says the author suggests that before the early 1970s, most historians who studied pre-industrial Europe did which of the following, right? So, if we look at the first paragraph, what it says is historians who studied pre-industrial Europe began for the first time in numbers to investigate more of the pre-industrial European population than this. And then difficulty, however, was that a few remaining 97% were studied by the other historians. Many historians based their investigations only on the records that seem to exist, that is, these major issues. Right? Now, what is the question about? It's referring to early 1950s. Most historians studied pre-industrial. वो क्या करते थे? So, fail to make distinctions among members of the pre-industrial European political and social elite. They were not able to distinguish between the social elite and the pre-historical people, pre-industrial people, basically. Members of pre-industrial European political and social elite. They were able to differentiate between them. One, so distinction जैसा कोई problem था नहीं, ठीक है. Two, it is not about pre-industrial European political and social elite. It's the elite and the non-elite class. Used investigatory methods that were almost exclusively statistical in nature. सब facts use कर रहे थे. Inaccurately established the influence of pre-industrial European political and social elite. Confined their work to a narrow range of the pre-industrial European population. They did not studied any other population, right? So that is where the answer comes from. It has to be option number D. Tended to rely heavily on birth, marriage record, etc. So that is not it. Of course, they were studying these other issues as well, but their focus was confined on the pre-industrial European people. Okay, so answer has to be D, Delhi. That's the correct answer, guys. I could see almost everyone must have gotten this answer right. It's a fact-based question, guys. All right, try this one, please. Question number 2. According to the passage, case histories extracted by historians have what? Can we have a look at the question? So if you want to refer, maybe you'll get an answer from this particular passage. I'll not show you the answer like the story, the statement right away, but maybe capturing this part would help you to answer it correctly. Yes, Karthik, that's the right option. Okay. It says, according to the passage, case histories extracted by historians have what? Scarcely illuminated the attitudes of the political and social elite. Political और social elite को तो वैसे भी ज़्यादा नहीं focus करे थे, focusing on the lower class, right? Indicated the manner in which those in power apportion justice, right? Can we consider this option? We can hold on to it at least. And here too, if you read these few lines, one way out this dilemma was to turn to the records of legal codes. For here, the voice of the non-elite was often heard, and then historians such as Leroy have used the documents to extract case histories which have illuminated the attitudes of different social groups. These attitudes include, but are not confined to attitudes towards crime in the law, and have revealed how the authorities administered justice. Right? So, considering this particular statement itself, you should be able to figure out that yes, it's indicating the manner in which the power was proportioned in different class of the society. Focused almost entirely on the thoughts and feelings of different social groups, not almost entirely, but the manner in which it is done, how the power was portioned in justice, that is what we can consider to be a better choice. Being based on the most part of the trial testimony or first kind of historical writing, very vague options. All you could have been confused is A with B, so B is a better choice. Okay, try this. Karthik, I hope you know the answer for this one. Did you try to answer B for this? I just read your answer. Is it B, Bombay, you're referring to for this particular question? It is C, in case you thought it to be B. Okay. It says it can be inferred from the passage that much of the early work by historians of the European non-elite of the pre-industrial period might have been more illuminating in these historians had there been what. तो किस केस में वो ज्यादा बताएगा कि नॉन एलीट क्लास क्या करती थी, राइट? सो यूज डिफरेंट मेथड्स ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिकल एनालिसिस. कहीं पे भी ऐसा नहीं है कि नंबर्स की कमी है. स्टैटिस्टिकल एनालिसिस शायद उन्होंने काफी किया होगा ऑलरेडी, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. Been more successful in identifying the attitudes of civil authorities, especially who administered justice towards non-elite, or is it being able to draw on more accounts written by contemporaries of the non-elite that describe what this non-elite thought? ठीक है, उनकी mental health के बारे में हमें ज्यादा पता नहीं चल रहा है. So that is what we want to infer more on. ठीक है, C is the correct answer. Heavily on the personal records left by members, been more unwilling to base their research on बर्थ मैरिज तो उन्होंने ऑलरेडी कर लिया था, उस पर तो रिसर्च करके उन्होंने टॉपिक्स लिखे हैं, लाइक छापो ऑल द डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज ऑन birth, marriage, death records and all of it. So answer has to be C. Had they captured more information on the mental health on the contemporaries of non-elite with more depth that describe non-elite what they thought, that would have been a better choice. Okay? So C is the right answer for this question, guys. In case you have any doubts or you want to ask anything, please have a look at it or just let me know. Or otherwise, I'll show you the last question. You can maybe write your answers. Okay, so maybe you can just have a look at this question, and when we meet next, that's going to be on Wednesday most probably. We can then connect, guys.
In it, you need to possess one powerful advantage: agility. Acquire it at the Amrita School of Business. Learn about next-gen strategies, new age products, shifting business models, and digital transformation, so that you don't just keep up with change, you create the change.